see people joining. That's great. We're so glad that you're joining us today for the 29th Annual Asian American Youth Leadership Conference. We had a little bit of a technical difficulties this morning, but I think we are getting it resolved. So that's a good thing. We're so excited to welcome all of you. And I'm Helen Ying, co-chair of the conference. And so this year's theme is Together in Solidarity. And not knowing that when we chose this theme, that so many things would have transpired. We chose this theme back in November of 2020. And obviously we know lots of things that has happened. But we're so glad you could join today and be a part of this historical moment as we, from the Asian American community, Asian American Pacific Islander community coming together and to take time to think about our place in our time that we're facing right now. And so we have a very rich program planned for you today, and we're going to kick it off with a message from our keynote speaker, Katherine Ho. And I just want to take a moment to introduce Katherine and just really want to thank her for taking time to join us today from her busy schedule as a student and musician. So let me just give a little background about Katherine, and then we're gonna let her take the time to share with you her message. So Katherine is a singer, songwriter from Thousand Oaks, California, whose voice has been featured in national commercials, TV shows, and feature films. She's best known for her Mandarin cover of Coldplay's Yellow by Zhang Zhen, based on Li Wenji's version that was featured on the soundtrack of the hit Hollywood film, Crazy Rich Asians. And I think many of you probably have seen it, maybe seen it several times. She's currently a senior at University of Southern California, where she studies human biology and pursues her interest in a cappella and Asian culture through her involvement in Trogans, USC's East Asian a cappella group. And now may I present to you Katherine Ho, and for her to share her message with us.
Hi everyone, I'm Katherine. I'm super honored to be here. So I'm going to quickly share a slide deck so that you can have some visuals while I'm talking. So once again, my name is Katherine Ho, and I'm an LA-based singer-songwriter and student at USC, where I study human biology. And as Helen said, you may recognize my voice from the movie Crazy Rich Asians, where I sang the Mandarin cover of Coldplay's Yellow that played at the end of the movie. I'm really so honored to be the keynote speaker at this incredible conference. And before I get started, I just want to give a huge shout out to Erin from CACA for inviting me to speak today. Erin and I sing in the same a cappella group at USC called Trogans. It's a premier East Asian interest a cappella group. And when he first asked me to be the keynote speaker, I definitely was a bit nervous and hesitant because I honestly questioned what wisdom I could impart from my somewhat chaotic jumble of experiences. As a full-time college student, I've changed my major 4 times now, and I'm also an aspiring singer who is passionate about my craft, but still working on honing my musical direction. And I'm also just a young adult still figuring out my relationship with my Asian American identity and my views on the world. But in the end, I know that it's okay to not have all the answers, and I decided that it's equally valid and inspiring to be a work in progress. So If any of you feel like you're also struggling to figure out your direction in life, I hope you know that you're definitely not alone if that's the only thing that you'll take away from my speech today. So, for better or for worse, I had a ton of different interests in high school, as you can see from this eclectic collage of images. Um, so in high school, I remember I loved academia. I loved AP computer science and biology. And I also loved being involved with a bunch of different extracurricular activities like tutoring and tennis team and choir. I was also really lucky that I had parents that were really supportive of my interest in the arts. And even though they were STEM professionals with no experience in the entertainment industry. So when I was 9, I started taking private voice lessons. In the lower right-hand corner, this is actually me and my first voice teacher. And I started taking private voice lessons when I was 9. And in middle school, my parents did a lot of research and cold calling to help me find a manager and an agent for acting. Again, and they had no experience in the
Oh,
entertainment industry.
um,
Sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought someone said something. Um, yeah, so middle school was a lot of hundreds of auditions for TV and film and commercial, and I landed small on-camera and voiceover roles for Disney Channel and Nickelodeon. So I really felt like I was living a double life because on one hand, I was fully immersed in normal high school life, taking APs and doing choir and sports and lunchtime clubs. But on the other hand, I'd often have to miss a lot of school for auditions and jobs for music and acting. I remember my junior year in high school, I missed nearly 2 months of school to compete on NBC's The Voice. This is me and my mom at the set of The Voice. It's a reality TV singing competition. And funny enough, I really tried to keep my professional music and acting life as private as possible. I'd actually lie and tell people that I had doctor's appointments instead of telling them that I'd be going to auditions. A part of me felt really ashamed to be pursuing the entertainment industry because I felt that people would judge me for being frivolous or superficial for trying to make it in Hollywood. So I really kept my entertainment life very much secretive, even with my closest friends. I also didn't know any Asians in my community who were pursuing the entertainment industry. And so that kind of further alienated me. Also, I started to resent the industry a bit because it was interfering so much with school, as I mentioned. And I actually truly really loved school. And although it seems really glamorous and exciting, being a child actress definitely comes with its challenges because the industry treats you like you're an adult professional who does this full time. And so they don't care if you have school or an important tennis match or a choir rehearsal, etc. They kind of expect you to be able to drop everything at a moment's notice. Um, and they could really afford to do that because it's such a competitive industry that if you don't show up for that opportunity, there's hundreds of thousands of other people that would take your spot in a heartbeat. And there's also just so much rejection. And I think I heard a statistic that you usually have to go on hundreds of auditions just to get a call back. And I definitely found that to be true. And so for these reasons, at the end of high school, I decided that I wanted to put a pause on pursuing music and acting professionally and instead go to college to pursue my academic interests in STEM. So this is a collage of some pictures of my freshman year of college. I started off as a psychology major with a pre-med emphasis. And for a few months of my freshman year, I was really fully immersed in that. However, a month and a half into my first semester at USC, all of my plans pretty much changed when I got the opportunity to record for Crazy Rich Asians. So in high school, I attended a 10-day summer music program called Acapella Academy. The logo is on the left-hand side here. I know a lot of you guys are high school students, so if you're passionate about a cappella or music in general, I'd highly recommend checking them out and applying because it was a really life-changing experience for me. So a musical mentor of mine from A Cappella Academy, Ben Bram, asked me if I wanted to audition for an unnamed Mandarin TV and film project. I had no idea what it was for at the time, but I remembered that the turnaround for submitting the audition was really tight. I think they gave me the demo track to the song and they wanted me to learn the song and submit my demo by the next morning. But to my surprise, a few days later, I heard that they liked my demo and wanted me to proceed with recording it in a professional studio. I was so excited, even though, again, I still didn't know what the project was for. It wasn't until about 30 minutes before I walked into the studio the next week that they told me that the song was for Crazy Rich Asians. At the time, upon finding out, I was completely in awe and I was pinching myself. Even though at the time no one really knew what Crazy Rich Asians was yet, I had heard that Constance Wu was going to star in the movie, and she's one of my biggest role models for her work in Fresh Off the Boat. So the recording session itself was pretty long and tiring, but also super exciting. If you can see on the right-hand side here, this is a picture I took with the director of Crazy Rich Asians, John M. Chu. He was there at my session helping me with the emotion and the story and showing me the scenes of the movie that it was going to be used in. He's also a USC alum, so it was really cool connecting over that. So even after the recording session, I had no idea how big the film would be, let alone that people would even care about my little song in the movie. All I knew was that I was so immensely proud to be even a small part of a historic moment for Asian Americans in Hollywood. Crazy Rich Asians is actually the first studio film in 25 years to feature a majority Asian cast. So being a part of CRA changed my life both professionally and personally. Professionally, it inspired me to want to give a career in music another shot, despite all the stigma that I had against the industry when I was younger. I didn't expect so many people to resonate with a Mandarin cover of Yellow since it's in a foreign language. But to my huge surprise, my cover actually reached #1 on Spotify's Viral 50 global chart, which was absolutely insane. And it opened doors to amazing opportunities to work with API creatives that I'd looked up to all my life. I have a couple photos here of me fangirling, but I've gotten to work with Jason Chen and Kurt, some of my middle school idols, and also I met Simu, and he's so sweet, and the cast of Fresh Off the Boat. Just a couple examples of the amazing people that I've met and been humbled by. And also, it was just really heartwarming to read people's messages about how the song inspired them or how it made them love their own culture and language when they had grown up embarrassed by it. So that was really powerful for me. And the movie was also monumental in my personal growth as well. Unlike many of my Asian American friends, I actually grew up ashamed and embarrassed of my culture. I remember always wishing that I was white and that being Asian made me less cool or acceptable to society. For the longest time, I was confused why I felt this way because I had never really experienced overt racism growing up. But looking back, I think this was in large part due to the lack of Asian faces in the media and also in my extracurricular communities growing up. So I rarely saw Asian faces in TV shows or movies. And even when I did, they were usually just the sidekick or a side character, like the best friend of the main character, or they were a borderline offensive 2D stereotype. So I kind of internalized that, I too must be a side character, that I should just keep my head down and work hard and be grateful that I even have an opportunity to have a seat at American society. Also, when I took acting lessons and I went on auditions and did other entertainment extracurriculars, I often noticed that sometimes I was one of the only Asians doing these activities. I think this is also a large reason why I was so afraid of telling my peers that, I did things in Hollywood and I did music and acting, because I felt like it was somehow wrong of me to be in these spaces where my people didn't belong. And obviously, this is all super toxic to tell myself. And I didn't realize the toll that all of this took on my mental well being and my career choices until Crazy Rich Asians came out and showed me the power that representation can have on a young person's self confidence. And I know that we still have such a long way to go in terms of representing all Asian voices, as we're such a diverse group culturally, geographically, and socioeconomically. But seeing CRA gave me hope. And I can confidently say that never in my life have I been prouder to be Asian and prouder to be in the entertainment industry than I am now. And I hope that the younger generation of Asian Americans will grow up with a plethora of representation in the media, and that they will grow up proud of their culture from the start instead of taking the long, winding road to self love that I took to get to where I am today. So, tying this back to the theme of today's conference, I think pride in your culture goes beyond just personal self confidence. I think that it goes hand in hand with social activism. I personally had grown up kind of blissfully ignorant of the racism in this country towards Asians and other communities of color, kind of thinking that our community had already been accepted by this country with open arms. And I was starkly reminded of the rampant hate that this country has towards people like myself when I was on a date in February 2020, right before lockdown, with my Chinese American boyfriend, and a pedestrian shouted at us to, take your virus back to the country. And thankfully, I wasn't murdered or assaulted like so many Asian elders and the Asian women in the Atlanta spa shootings. But it was enough of a wake up call to know that racism is very real and no one in our community is immune to it. And there's no overnight fix for issues as complex as racism, but I think the first step that we can all take is to fully love ourselves. When I was younger, I wasn't very inclined to speak up about Asian American issues because by being ashamed of my own culture, I internalized that it was the norm for me and my community to experience microaggressions, and that we somehow deserved it. And it was a due that we had to pay to get a seat at the table. And it wasn't until recently when I started becoming fiercely proud of who I was and seeing other Asian Americans be fiercely proud of who they were, that I started to get more and more angry about the racism that our community faces and more passionate about speaking up. So, in that sense, I think that raising a generations of Asian Americans to be truly proud of who we are is the first step that will result in a generation of leaders and activists. So I'm still a work in progress when it comes to so many different things. I'm still learning to love myself and unlearn the toxic things I told myself about my race defining me when I was younger. Career wise, I know that I want to continue pursuing music, but I also know that this is a very challenging industry to be in, regardless of if you're Asian or white or any other skin color. It's just a very tough industry to be in. But what I do know is that I want my work as an artist to be reflective of my eclectic cultural and musical influences. These are some artists that really inspire me, from Western music to also Mandarin pop and everything in between. I also want a central piece of my artistry to focus on self love and to encourage young Asian Americans to be a proud member of the API community so that they can maybe avoid feeling the internalized cultural embarrassment that I went through when I was younger. I also struggle with imposter syndrome, which, if you don't really know this term, I kind of put a little infographic, but it's essentially feeling like an outsider in your own community or in your own industry. Um, I sometimes feel like an imposter in the music industry because of my other academic pursuits in college. At USC, I major in human biology and I hope to explore roles in the healthcare field, specifically in research or user experience. And I used to and sometimes do struggle with the thought that I'm somehow less serious or less qualified of a musician than my peers who are pursuing music full time because I have so many other career interests too. But I'm starting to feel more comfortable with the fact that I do have more than one passion, and I'm starting to accept that I don't necessarily have to choose one over the other at this point in my life. I'm so young still, and that loving to do one of them doesn't mean that I don't deserve to work hard and thrive in the other one as well. And so I am unsure what my future holds, but I'm learning to become comfortable with the fact that even though I don't have everything figured out right now, I will end up where I need to be. And so I hope that, again, if any of you are feeling in the same boat, you know that it's more than okay and even beneficial to take times to make mistake, try new things, and switch careers when you come to that cross bridge in the future. I also know that I still have such a long way to go personally when it comes to educating myself on issues of race and how I can better highlight API struggles and amplify API voices, and also how I can better stand in solidarity with other communities of color. Personally and professionally, I am a work in progress, but I'm learning to see this as something precious and exciting rather than daunting. Thank you guys so much. And if you want to keep up with my journey, you can follow me on the following social media. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Catherine. My name is Hua Win, and I am one of the co-chairs for the AOLC conference, along with Helen Ying, who you heard from earlier. Again, thank you, Catherine, for sharing your inspiring story and journey and
Hey,
helping us.
actually, Aaron's going to lead us into a Q&A session.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
before we move on to the next part. So go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, Hua, you'll get your thunder in a second. But yeah, thank you so much, Catherine, for that amazing presentation. I think like I'm speaking for everybody and just saying that, you know, your sheer honesty and your sheer like sincerity, talking about the industry and talking about your experiences, we all really appreciate that. So without further ado, I'll just jump to a couple questions that we got from the audience during, again, your great keynote. So the first question that we got is from Hui Hui, and his question is, as someone who wants to be on the big screen one day, what has helped you to keep on going in the music and acting industry?
So this is a pretty easy question for me, but it definitely my parents played a huge role. Again, I was not somebody, unfortunately, I can't say I was somebody that just like always knew that I wanted to do music and like never felt discouraged and was just going for all the time. I think definitely having my parents support me this whole time and ever since I was young, just being a huge cheerleader for me, even though they knew it was a risky industry, but just like being very supportive also gave me the courage to continue pursuing music. And I think also just talking to other Asian American creatives too has been really inspiring to see that it's really possible for someone with a similar background to me to make it and to actually see. Summarize, I do think that I will say I have to credit my parents a lot for their support. My dad would always drive me to auditions, even though they both worked full time. They always made time to drive me to my auditions or to give me critiques and feedback on my songs that I would write. And, you know, they've just been really supportive, even though they themselves are not working professionals in the entertainment industry. So I really am grateful for that. I think it really gave me a head start because they put me into a lot of musical activities when I was young. So that is one part. And I think the second wave of that comes with me being an adult and kind of getting to work with a lot of different Asian American creatives. And growing up, I didn't really work with a lot of other Asian American creatives. I kind of just went on auditions and then didn't see a lot of Asians there, but then I would like do my own stuff as well. So I think really collaborating with the API community in Los Angeles and talking to people and seeing people that had a similar face and background as me succeeding in the industry was really inspiring.
For sure. Thank you for that. And the next question, we're touching into more of like a darker side, I guess, of the Asian American involvement in the entertainment industry. But this question was from Maria, and it's actually gone, so I'm going to paraphrase it. But basically, you mentioned in your presentation that you noticed a lot of kind of like these two-dimensional characters, kind of caricatures of what it means to be a PI in America. And in your experience, or if you know anybody who've had this experience, have they ever been asked to kind of portray like kind of like a nerdier character or just kind of like a side character just based on your like ethnicity?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was in middle school and high school, I was actually more focused on acting than I was on singing. So I definitely auditioned for so many roles where I was like the best friend, like the nerdy, quirky best friend. And at the time, you don't really think much of it because you're a struggling actor and you're just so grateful to even have a role on set or be a part of the table. So I think this is something that probably, I don't want to speak for all Asian Americans, but something that I like didn't even have the luxury of considering until recently, when these conversations started happening more. But yeah, definitely when I was younger, looking back, almost all my roles were the side character. And I didn't even, what was worse is like I didn't even think much of it at the time. I was still really grateful for even those. So I think it's definitely important to have these conversations now.
Yeah, for sure. And those conversations. Um, we have a couple more questions. I think we have time. But our next question from Amelia is, what would you tell your younger self when starting to work in the industry?
Oh, that's a good question. I think one of my biggest regrets is actually like in high school. I feel like when I really started to kind of get disillusioned with the industry and like how it was interfering so much with school and how I was so ashamed to tell people about like good things that were happening to me in the industry, I would definitely go back and change that because now I feel like I can't shut, like my friends always just hear about my music all the time. So I definitely I blab on about it now, but I wish I could tell myself that there's nothing to be ashamed about for pursuing entertainment. It doesn't mean that you don't like care about the world. Like it doesn't mean you're pursuing something frivolous. And entertainment is really impactful. And it's equally as important as any other industry. So I think that's the main thing. And also just not feeling the pressure to always have to fit in and like be a normal high school student. Like I should have been proud of my accomplishments and proud to tell people what I was doing outside of school.
For sure, for sure. And then I guess just this last question, it kind of touches more on representation. But this question's from Jane. So it's actually a two-parter. So the first part is, what is your dream vision for representation in the media? And the second part is, what is our role as audiences in encouraging representation?
Oh, that's a really good set of questions. So, tackling the first, so what is your dream vision? I think my dream vision would be, I kind of am paraphrasing this from API creatives that I look up to, but I know it's kind of a conversation in the industry to have diversity be so ingrained in Hollywood one day that we don't even need to make a big point of diversity. It's not like, oh, like this Asian American film, this all Asian cast, because I feel like that was very much what Crazy Rich Asians was, is everyone was really focusing on the fact that the cast was majority Asian, which obviously is really great because it was the first film in 25 years to feature an all Asian cast. And that's definitely something that needs to be commemorated and celebrated. But a lot of the cast members of CRA at the time said that in the future, they hoped that one day we could have an all Asian film and not have all Asian film be the headline. So it just like a great film in general. So I think that would be my vision for representation in the media. And as far as role as audiences, I think definitely the biggest way is to show up with your wallet because big studios will fund projects that they think will be successful in the market. And I remember there was a lot of talk when Crazy Rich Asians came out and a lot of other Asian-centric films in the past few years about making a big deal that everyone show up for the opening weekend so that the box office numbers would be really good. And also just like buying merchandise from your favorite Asian American creators will support them because it is really hard to create and make music and entertainment when you are not being compensated for it. So I think the biggest thing to do is support with your dollar.
For sure. And it's really great now. It seems like the movement started with CRA, is kind of extrapolated to now with like Minari, Nomadland. There's just so many great films coming out with that Asian American representation that we're all searching for. So once again, thank you so much, Katherine. And this won't be the last time you've seen Katherine. She'll be back at the end for another appearance, and you can just assume what that is. But yeah, moving on, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Hua to kick us off for the conference.
Thank you, Erin. Yeah, I guess it's officially my turn. Sorry about all the technical difficulties. Thank you for everyone for coming back and sticking around. Once again, my name is Hua Win, and I am one of the co-chairs for the AYLC conference, along with Helen Ying, who you heard from earlier. Again, thank you, Katherine, for sharing your inspiring story and journey and helping us kick off our AYLC theme Together in Solidarity. And like what Erin said, you'll have the opportunity to see Katherine again in our closing ceremony, as she will have a special performance for us. Let's do a quick review of the run of show today. You can refer to your conference booklet that was shared with you in your email, or you can visit our website at aayylc.org to find it. Right after this, you'll head into your designated Together in Solidarity workshops with your community and student facilitators. And then at noon, everyone will break for lunch on their own. And then after lunch, everyone will return back to the main room here for a fun social circle time led by a few of our AAYLC student ambassadors. Students will select, during the social circle time, students will be able to select their first round of student choice workshops, and the link will be provided in the chat. And right after your first round of student choice workshops, students will return back to the main room again here, and will be able to select their second student choice workshops. And then for closing ceremony, we will return here to the main room for a special performance from a keynote, Katherine. And then we'll have the opportunity for students to win some prizes with a Kahoot game. So be sure to pay attention throughout the conference. And I would like to introduce Katie Chintakum, who is our amazing registration director for AYLC conference, and she will help us lead into the room links for your next part of the conference.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katie, and I am the Registration and Fundraising Director for AAYLC this year. So following this opening program, we're going to have everybody join us in their respective pre-assigned rooms. You should have received an email this morning. If not, you should have received an email on Wednesday with your room assignments. And if you click on the group that you're in, it'll take you to the respective Zoom link. Everybody except those that are assigned in room 11, please refer to that email. If you're in group 11, just check your email, and you should have received an email within the past hour with a new link. And if anyone hasn't received their assignments, please feel free to visit us in the command center. If someone can link the command center on the chat, that'd be great. If you have any questions throughout the day, please feel free to also text or call us at 503-927-8873. I'll go ahead and link that in the chat as well. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to write it in the chat or contact us. And that's essentially it. Once you're done with the pre-assigned groups, as Hua said, your group leaders will then assist you with funneling you back into this main room.